Now, the Ghana Statistical Service is gearing up to begin the country's next population census after almost a decade of the last one. The service has started recruiting university graduates and eligible applicants who they hope to train as national and regional trainers for the upcoming census that will be conducted, by the way, across the country. The Statistics Service had originally scheduled March 15 this year for the census, but it has had to reschedule twice. So let's get some answers and details on why it has had to be rescheduled and other things, including funding for this census. My special guest for today and for this conversation is government statistician, Professor Samuel Kobina Annim. Prof, you're welcome to the show. Many thanks for coming.
Thank you for having us.
So let me start by asking about the rescheduling. That's what seems to be fresh on a lot of people's minds. So we wanted to do this in March, then we moved it to May, and then we moved it, I think, to June, and now we've moved it to next year. What's happening?
Thank you. So we had to reschedule the census mainly because of COVID-19 and the restrictions that ensued thereafter. I must indicate that our earlier date of March 2020 had some challenges with preparations, but when we had the first COVID-19 case, all indication pointed to the fact that we needed to reschedule. So our major rescheduling was from June to September, and we thought that by then we would have reached our peak for COVID-19 and then have the census in September. We did not find the need to do the census after September 2020, principally because of the elections. The census requires a very stable population, because once you have a very highly mobile population, the tendency of missing some segments of the population is very high. Okay. So now we're saying that April to May 2021 would be the data collection period. I must indicate that as at the time that we had to reschedule it from June, we had reached an advanced stage with our preparations because we're just 3 months away from that. And what I mean by we had reached an advanced stage is the major activities that precede data collection exercises were underway and had reached an advanced stage. So for instance, we had finished with our census mapping work, that is the field work, and we're doing office work in relation to that. Okay. We had recruited our master's trainers and we're taking them through the training material. So by implication, our training materials were also ready. And all the digital solutions that we wanted to use for the census had been contracted out.
I see. Let's talk about what you are expected to find. So I expect certainly that we'll have difference in the numbers by the time you're finished, because the last time we did a census was 10 years ago. 10 years after, we certainly have many more people. First of all, walk us through the implications of sometimes the differences between the figures that we record when we do like one census and when next we do another. Walk us through the implications for the changes that we may record.
I mean, the implications is mainly for resource allocation purposes, and also it's the basis by which we do a number of things, one of which is our democracy thrives on the numbers that we have. But before that, let me mention that we do it decennially as recommended by the UN and also as our Statistical Service Act grants us to do. But what we do within the 10-year period is what we call the annual population projections. So when we did our last census in 2010, the population figure was 24.7 million. And given the 3 indicators that we use for population projections, i.e. fertility, mortality, and migration, we've been able to compute our annual population projections between 2011 up to 2020. As we speak, we project that the population of the country is around 31 million. So what we do with the changes, as I indicated earlier on, is to help for planning, because the census does not only give us the basis to plan directly in terms of resource allocation, but in addition to that is the basis by which we get the disaggregated data that we need. It's the only data collection exercises that takes us to all the localities that we have in the country. As we speak, we've identified over 51,000 enumeration areas, which we are going to put an enumerator in each of these enumeration areas, and we mimic an enumeration area to a locality depending on the type that we are talking about. So it gives us disaggregated information. So these changes help us reach each locality, and by implication we achieve the SDG goal that says that no one is to be left behind. and the census is the only activity that helps us to do that. In addition to that, all the surveys that gives us the opportunity to delve deep into the challenges that we have uses the census as the sampling frame. Without the census, you will not get a good sampling frame. So all the detailed analysis that you need to engage in, you will not be able to engage with. So with these things, we say that the population and housing census is really a national exercise. So because from our point of view, is the basis by which we do almost everything in the country.
If that's the case, I mean, in the parts of your submission where you said we use this to be able to reach out to the population so that nobody is left behind. Why is it that over the years we still know the number of people, we've done these exercises, but we still have people who are terribly left behind? How do we explain that? I mean, from a statistician's perspective.
Quite a number of factors might lead to the challenges that we have with some segments of the population and different development issues. One of which is what I said earlier on. The census gives us a frame. And what we need to do is the regularity, the frequency by which we do different surveys to understand peculiarities of problems in different areas in the country. So from the census, we're going to have 11 modules, and it barely would scratch the surface of the developmental challenges that we have. That is why within the intercensus period, we do studies such as the demographic and health survey that focuses on children and women in terms of their health issues. We do the Ghana Living Standard Survey that helps us to get a better understanding of living conditions and so on. So from my point of view as government statistician, we need to improve on the regularity and the consistency of the data that we collect. We've seen much improvement in what we are doing, but there's still room for us to improve on it. I mean, one of the issues that have come up under discussion in different political arena has to do with our issues related to employment, unemployment rate. This is a very important macroeconomic indicator, but we have to rely on either the census, which is done decennially, rely on the labor force survey, which is done within periods that are highly influenced by sources of funds, or the living standard survey. But in other jurisdictions, you get labor force survey being done on quarterly basis or at worst annual basis.
Do we have plans? Does Ghana have plans of at least introducing that a little bit of that, so that at least we can have a fair idea the number of people who are employed, or so it gives us a clearer indication of our employment statistics?
Indeed, for the next 5 years, we're going to serve people of Ghana with annual labor force survey, and funding for that has been secured. And I must indicate that we are not going to look at it only from the demand side in terms of people who are not working or are not willing or are not available to work, but we're going to complement that with supply side data as well, and we are engaging with the relevant institutions to help us get an understanding of their labor gaps, and this will help us do the matching that we want.
Sounds interesting, but there's one thing that you're doing ahead of this census. You're doing recruitment. Tell us a bit more about this recruitment process and exactly what these people will be doing.
The enormity of the census exercise requires that we recruit people at different levels. So for instance, we currently have somebody in country, an international consultant that we refer to as the chief census technical advisor, and through UNFPA, he's supporting us with how our activities can be benchmarked with international standards. But what we're currently embarking on vigorously has to do with getting people to train those who are eventually going to collect the data for us. So we have 4 levels of engagement. One is the master trainers, which are mainly people from within the service or people who helped us in conceptualizing how we want to do this census. And we have about 100 of these master trainers. As I indicated way back in March, we had identified them and we are taking them through the training. Just below the master training is our national trainers. And we're going to engage close to 970 of these national trainers. And what we're doing now is to ensure that we get the cream of people who, most importantly, are passionate about the exercise and would be with us throughout the process. So we have identified diverse sources for recruiting them. One option is to engage with academia, because we need people who have at least master's degree and people who have lecturers who can vouch for their ability. They've used them before and have also worked for Ghana Statistical Service in the past. Then the third layer is regional statisticians, and we're going to engage 6,750 of them. This number will train the 75,000 people that we're going to put out there as field enumerators and supervisors. So in all, we have 4 levels of training, and we are using our online platform. If you go to our website, you're going to get the link and you're going to apply, and we will take you through the screening process.
Okay. Do you have money to pay these people?
We do have money to pay the trainers and the field officers that we are recruiting for the 2021 Population Housing Census.
That's so you're looking to engage about 970 national trainers, you said, and then 6,650?
750.
6,750 others.
Regional trainers.
Okay, so that's 6,750 plus 970. That's a lot. I'm not very good with math, so I won't even attempt it right now. But that's a lot of people. That's, I mean, 6,000. You're looking at, let's say, 8,000 if we put it that way. How much will you be paying one person averagely?
We are very careful in providing a flat rate depending on the conditions that and the mode of engagement that we're going to use them. Our plan is that if we use you at the master's level, for instance, you are going to train the national trainers, but because we've invested in you, we would want you to go down to train the regional trainers and eventually train the field officers. So depending on your availability, your capacity, your passion for it, we are trying to put out different contracts for people that would engage with us. Previously,
so averagely, if you put it on the average, how much will one person earn, for example?
It very much depends on the level. So for instance, our master trainers, when we were engaging them last year, we're giving them something in the region of 250 Ghana cedis per day. But this is definitely something that would vary as we move down the lower levels. And again, as I indicated, if you're going to be with us for a 1-year period, we cannot sustain that amount. So we need that contracting arrangement to ensure that we pay you what you deserve.
Where's the money coming from? What's the source of funding? And do you already have the money sitting in the Ghana Statistics Services account?
Ghana government is funding the 2021 Population Housing Census and has committed about 85% to the census exercise.
How much is this 85%?
So the census itself is going to cost us 477 million Ghana cedis. But I'm going to put a caveat to it because this is the budget that was approved prior to COVID-19. And you would all agree with me that with the onset of COVID-19, a number of our operations have changed. So for instance, we had already done our 2 trial censuses, but because of COVID-19 and the time lag, we are going in for another trial census.
So you need more money?
We've revised our budget, and we are hoping that it's either we request for more money or revise our entire operations in terms of where we're going to invest.
So what's the current budget you're dealing with?
We're still keeping the 477, but we've made another budget to the tune of $12 million US. I'm quoting in United States dollars because we've started engaging development partners in that discussion, and this comes to about 72 million Ghana cedis. But this is again heavily dependent on where we would be in 2021 in the face of COVID-19. If by then it has abated considerably, I'm sure all these issues surrounding PPEs and so on, the cost associated with it is going to reduce significantly. So we are very hesitant in putting out the eventual figure as a result of COVID-19 implications.
So with the 477 million, is this cedis or?
Yes, 477
that's
million
how much
Ghana
government
cedis
is committing or has committed to?
Yes, let me provide clarity on that.
Please.
So as I indicated, this amount of money has been secured by Ghana government through a facility from the World Bank. So the money is not seated with Ghana Statistical Service, but because government has gone through the entire processes, we are dealing directly with with the World Bank. And because of the way they operate, for every expenditure line, we need to go to them, justify it, and write a no objection for it to be approved. So on the side of government, as far as that funding is concerned, we've gone past it. Now it's just an operational issue in terms of Ghana Statistical Service dealing with the World Bank based directly on their arrangement. Yes.
And just getting the disbursements from there.
Yes.
Okay, the recruitment isn't done. It ends on the 30th of October, I saw.
Again, depends on the recruitment that you're talking about.
Recruitment for the population census, those who will be supporting you with the population census?
Yes, but as I said, we have it in different phases. So if it's the regional training, then you are right, it's ending there. But we're still going to keep the application for enumerators and supervisors open because we wish we get a pool of people, as I indicated, who are really committed to the exercise.
So I've heard people say that the population census has something to do with elections. I'm sure it's something that's not very strange to you as well. Help us with a bit of education. what is the relationship between the population census and elections?
I would respond to it from a much broader perspective and relate that to the vision of the service, because the vision of the service is that we are the trusted provider of official statistics for good governance. And the reason why we relate official statistics to good governance is what statistics does broadly, rather than looking at it from a narrow point of view. So the relationship that one can think about is the way the Electoral Service and other agencies use Ghana Statistical Service to get a sense of the relationship between population and election. So for instance, ahead of the elections, we needed to service the Electoral Commission and other agencies with a population of those who can vote and how this population is distributed across the country. So naturally, it provides a benchmark data ahead of the registration exercise that the Electoral Commission does, and is the basis by which NIA, for instance, will say that this is the expected registration, EC will say that this is the expected registration, and so on. So we do not provide data at the disaggregated level. We do it at the aggregated level, as I indicated, at the district level. Okay.
A lot of information and education you've given us, Prof. Let me end with this survey, or this Ghana Census of Agriculture information that you just provided me when you came in. And I just want us to talk briefly about the findings. So this was done, well, this is 2017-2018 Ghana Census of Agriculture. So this is something that you've done already. Help us understand what you found, just the highlights as we wrap up.
Okay, thank you. So for clarity, data was collected in 2017-2018, but the report was launched just last Monday. So the report dates September 2020. Okay. The main highlights of the Ghana Census of Agric is related to a better understanding of the structure and how the structure, as I indicated, how the sector performs across the different subsectors. So what we've done in this Ghana Census of Agric is to target 6 subsectors, specifically aquaculture. We went into arable and tree crops, did something on capture fisheries, and went into forestry and livestock. What this census has helped us to understand is the fact that our agricultural sector is still rudimentary and rural based. So we have about 75% of the activities still in the rural areas. Our major observation had to do with their modes of operations. So you realize that when you expect a modernized sector to be using tractors, to be using sellers, we just have about 21% of people in our culture using tractors. And for every 3 people that you find using tractors, there's only 1 person who is using it.
But that's really not strange. This is information that we sort of knew already. So was it really necessary to get into that bit? Why should I not take it as a waste of time and resources?
What we do not know are 2 things. One is the extent to which we are still using rudimentary tools. So as I indicated, yes, everybody knows that our sector is still rudimentary, but we didn't know the extent. Okay. So now we are saying that 21% are those who are using tractors. And as I was about saying, for every 3 users of tractors, you find only 1 person that owns it. What is intriguing for us is the relationship between other socio-demographic variables and the use of tractors. So for instance, you would want to find out the level of education of those who are using it. And for persons engaged in agriculture, we realize that 80% of them either do not have any education or at best have only basic education. Okay. We realize that only 27% of holders of agric constitute the youth. So if you have an economy that you have 36% of your people working in the agricultural sector and youth constitute just a quarter of it, then definitely there's something to think about. So in our report, we try to sort of deduce why why the youth are not involved in agric. And some of the reasons could be the fact that they don't have any education, and some of the reasons could be that because the financial outlay in getting these modern equipment sort of are deterring, they are unable to get into these agricultural activities.
Thank you very much. It's been a very, like I said, very enlightening conversation. I've been asking people to text us and to tell us what they want to know about this process that we're going to go through. Most of you are interested in the politics, but I'll just, because I've run out of time, I'll just take this one. It says, I just want to know if during the census you count persons, so the way he puts it here is you count mad people, but yeah, persons with mental mental illness in the country, in addition to those who are not mentally ill. And by mental ill, I believe he's probably talking about people, those that we find on the street. Are they added to the census?
Yes.
Okay.
So the census is about not leaving anyone behind. So every person in Ghana is our target. So we reach out to those with mental challenges, those with living in extreme conditions.
I mean, those with mental challenges, you can find them in the psychiatrists, etc. But those who, like, you know,
we do target all of them.
You count them?
We do target all of them, and we have a way of engaging community people to help us target these people.
Well, Prof, I'll say a very big thanks to you for coming. I hope that your question has been answered, those who asked that particular question. Professor Samuel Kobina Annim is the head of the Ghana Statistician, Ghana Statistics Service. Thank you very much for coming.